All right, well, we just witnessed Vasyl Lomachenko totally dominate Guillermo Rigondeaux in a fight that many people thought would be competitive. Not everyone, but a lot of people thought that fight would be competitive. I thought it would be more competitive than it turned out to be. And obviously, there's a ton of pound for pound talk going on about Vasyl Lomachenko. A lot of people putting him number one. I'm not a big pound for pound guy, but the big comparison that's being made right now is Terence Crawford and Vasyl Lomachenko. We've heard Bob Arum say that as good as Terence Crawford is, he compared him to Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns-ish type of fighter. But with saying that, he still said that he thought Vasyl Lomachenko was special. I'm going to give my opinion on why I think Terence Crawford is better than Vasyl Lomachenko. And by saying that, I don't mean to diminish Vasyl Lomachenko at all. Um, I may believe somewhat that some people are overrating him, but that does not mean that I think he's not a great fighter, that he's not a very skilled fighter, and that also does not mean that I don't feel that he can still get better because at 29 years old, he's not a young guy, but he's definitely not an old guy. He's still in his prime. But with that being said, obviously we know because of his extensive amateur career, he just turned pro a couple years ago, and he doesn't have a ton of experience as compared to Terence Crawford, obviously at the pro level. But let's go over some things here, and let me tell you why I think Terence Crawford is all around a better fighter now. Because we see these last couple fights with Lomachenko and how people have bowed out of these fights. They've decided to not continue. I'm not going to use the word quit because I don't want to be disparaging to any fighter because, as I said many times, it takes a big heart to get in that ring. But let's call it for what it is. The guys checked out of the fights. And, Rigondeaux, however you want to look at it, I think he checked out of the fight last night. I suspect the hand injury was not legit. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, will definitely do a retraction, and I will apologize. But I don't think the hand was injured at all. But why I think Terence Crawford is better, getting back to that whole thing with the quitting, quote unquote quitting, is Terence Crawford doesn't give guys a chance to quit. He's beating these guys. He's beating these guys down. He's just destroying some of these guys, and he's not giving them a chance to quit. Um, Whereas Lomachenko, I think, I'm not saying he's not a hard puncher and he's not hurting these guys, but I don't think Rigondeaux was in serious trouble last night. I don't think he was hurt. I think he was more embarrassed than anything. Whereas Terence Crawford will embarrass you, but in the same way, uh, in the same process, he'll hurt you as well. I mean, he's definitely got more of a killer type instinct, in my opinion, than Lomachenko, who's more of a guy who wants to just win and score points and outbox you and, be the ring general. Terence Crawford is all of that and then some. I think he's a killer. I think he's got a lot of dog in him too, because we saw Lomachenko in a dog fight with Orlando Salido, and we know that's early in his career, but it wasn't that long ago, and I'm sure he's learned from that a little bit. And he's also came back in that fight and looked like he was going to stop Salido late in that 12th round. Didn't have enough time to do it, so I'll give him credit for that. But earlier in the fight, definitely you can question some of the tactics, but that's part of boxing. I mean, you have to have a little bit of dog in you. You have to be in there with guys that could push you like that, take you to places where you don't want to go. I've said that many times. Other analysts have said that other times too. So you have to have a little bit of dog in you. Sometimes skill is not enough. There's the intangibles. There's the killer instinct. There's having that dog in you, being willing when everything else fails to get in the trenches with guys. And we've seen, Terence Crawford do that a little bit when he was fighting at 135, and then he decided to step up and fight a guy like Breeders Prescott, who was a bigger guy than him, arguably maybe a harder hitter, a stronger guy at the time. He went up there and, he outgutted him, just like Andre Ward in his first step up fight did that against, what the hell is his name? The guy that he did that, Edison Miranda, excuse me. When he did that against Edison Miranda, he was going in there against a bigger, arguably stronger guy, and he outgutted him. So in the one opportunity where Lomachenko was put in a position where he had to really dig down deep and outgut somebody And in fairness, it was early in his career, but he did come up short. He did come up short. He was supposed to win that fight. He was heavily favored, but Orlando Salido, for whatever you want to call it, he came in overweight a little bit. Um, he definitely had some questionable tactics in some people's opinions, but at the end of the day, like I said, you have to overcome those situations. And even Terence Crawford against Gamboa. Gamboa was a smaller guy, but he was outboxing Crawford, and Crawford was kind of somewhat in a hole in that fight. I thought early on, but he dug himself out, switched things up, and he turned that into a dog fight. So at any particular time, when Terence Crawford decides, you know what, I'm not going to box tonight. I'm going to go in there and take this guy's soul. I'm going to outgut this guy. I'm going to get in this guy's chest. Same thing with Julius Ndongo. Got right in his chest, ripped his body apart, and took him out of there. So these guys aren't having a chance to give up or quit. And Terence Crawford has shown a lot of versatility. He's equally dangerous in the southpaw stance as well as the orthodox stance. And he's moving up in these weight classes. He's fighting bigger guys. Victor Postal, a guy who I picked to beat Terence Crawford, um, I thought that he totally schooled Victor Postal. He made him into a docile type fighter. He didn't, Victor Postal went into a defensive shell because every time he tried to open up, Terence Crawford was hurting him, knocked him down, and he basically took all the life out of Victor Postal, who was a guy that was much bigger than him. Again, and now there's talk of Terence Crawford moving up to 147, and he's the only guy who's actually calling out another bigger guy in Errol Spence, another dangerous guy in Errol Spence. So Terence Crawford, I think, skill for skill, is definitely comparable to Vasyl Lomachenko. I think you can compare the two guys. I think Terence Crawford is a better inside fighter. I think he, goes to the body well, digs those short shots to the body, and those little short 45 uppercut hook type variation punches up close. I think he can really be a buzzsaw on the inside and grind guys down on the inside, whereas Vasyl Lomachenko likes to throw those little, pitter pat touch, and then he just comes out and resets. Whereas Terence Crawford can get in there, grind it out with someone up close and inside, and really try to hurt them and punch through them. So, um, that's just how I feel. I think that there's a lot of comparisons being made. So that's why I think that Crawford is a better fighter all around. That's just my opinion. I disagree with Real Talk in the chat. He doesn't think that Crawford could fight on the inside, but that's how he beat Ndongo. That's how he beat Ndongo. He wore him down on the inside, and he broke him down with body shots up close. That's how he beat Gamboa. Got in Gamboa's chest. Um, I think that Crawford is just a better all around fighter. I think he's physically stronger. I think he's a harder puncher. I think that he could fight a tough fight, whereas Lomo's more of a finesse guy. Whereas I think Crawford's a little bit of both. That's the difference between these two guys. Um, yeah, real talk. That's your opinion. I have seen Crawford control guys. I've seen him dominate guys. I think he controlled Ricky Burns, and that's another thing. Went into Ricky Burns' backyard, and went into foreign territory where the deck was stacked against him, and he won a clear cut decision, and he basically schooled Ricky Burns. Now Vasyl Lomachenko obviously is not American, but he's got an American promoter, and he's been marketed in the U.S. and all his fights have been in the U.S. Pretty much, or just about all of them have been. If they haven't, someone can correct me. I don't have his record in front of me, but I'm pretty confident in saying that all his fights have been in the U.S. So he's never really had to go into another guy's backyard. He's always been the A side for the most part. And Terence Crawford has not. Terence Crawford has been in situations where, going back to that Breeders' Prescott fight, not everyone thought he was going to win that fight. That was a step up fight for him into a new weight class, and he definitely proved that he belonged. So I just think that we'll see Terence Crawford be able to go up and probably go as high as maybe 154. And you'll never hear anyone say this guy's too big for Terence Crawford, because he's fought bigger guys, he's controlled bigger guys, and he's beaten bigger guys. Whereas Lomachenko, I think once he goes up and fights some big guys who have somewhat of skill comparable to him, not on the same level, but I think if he is put in a situation possibly where he may have to gut it out, I'm not saying he won't rise to the occasion, but there is a question whether or not he will. Whereas we've seen Terence Crawford, as I said, not to sound redundant and keep repeating myself, Terence Crawford has that killer instinct, has that dog in him. We know that, or at least I believe that. That's my opinion, and that's just how I feel about it. Obviously, you guys can comment on this in the chat. You can disagree with me. Um, this is going to be a real lively debate. I know that because there are a ton of Lomachenko fans out there, and I respect the guy. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's a very good fighter, but again, I have to see him put in that situation. That's how I determine. That's one of the criterias that I use to determine a fighter. When you put him in a situation when things aren't going his way, when he has to face adversity. Sugar Ray Leonard against Tommy Hearns, where the eye was swelled up closed, he had to come back from that. Muhammad Ali fighting with a broken jaw. Obviously Terence Crawford has not done it to that level yet, but he's stepped up. He's been the smaller guy. He's been in hostile territory. He's given up rounds early, and he basically had switched things up and turned fights around that didn't start off greatly for him. So, we've seen Lomachenko again. It hasn't been a ton of fights. There's only like 11 fights, but that one time when he had to face adversity, where he had to switch things up, when things weren't going his way, he didn't do it. So I still need to see a similar situation from Lomachenko where he has to be put in that situation and has to overcome that. And I think Terence Crawford is willing to be put in those situations because he wants to fight Errol Spence. He wants to go up there and fight Keith Thurman. He wants to fight those guys at 147. He's been very adamant about calling them guys out. Whereas um, I'm not so sure what Lomachenko is going to do. They're talking about possibly Mikey Garcia, possibly Linares, but you know nothing's been edged to stone. We haven't seen him be vocal about that. He's basically saying that he'll do whatever Bob Arum wants him to do. Whereas Terence Crawford really is calling these guys out. He wants to go up to 147. He wants to challenge himself. He wants the opportunity to be able to dominate and conquer another division. And I think that he's putting himself in a situation where he really can be great, where he really can be elite. Cleaning out divisions, unifying divisions, fighting all comers at 147, cleaning out that 140, cleaning out that 140-pound division, being that first guy since 2005, 2006 to unify a division. Let's see someone else do that. Let's see someone else go up, three weight classes and even before stepping in the ring against a 147-pound fighter, people are already saying that this guy can be a force at 147. They're already touting this guy at 147. So let's really see what happens at 147. If he goes up and makes some noise at 147, then I think the argument is going to be dead. I think definitely that Terence Crawford will get the accolades he deserves. If he can go up there and beat an Errol Spence, go up there and beat a Keith Thurman, go up there and beat a Danny Garcia. And, I think that there's a lot to be done on both guys' ends, but I think so far, Terence Crawford's a little bit ahead of the game. That's not to say Lomachenko can't catch up, but in my own humble opinion, I'm going to have to say that I think Terence Crawford, all around, is a better fighter than Vasyl Lomachenko because of some of the intangibles that I mentioned, and because I also believe that the mentality of Crawford, he's a mean guy in there, and I think sometimes that's what you need as a fighter to, overcome adversity and be great. All right, guys. Till next time, Beaver's out. And don't forget today, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, to catch the Ringside Reporter podcast because we'll talk about Lomachenko more and I'll talk more about his fight with Guillermo Rigondeaux later. But until then, talk to y'all soon. Peace.